Colony collapse is basically when you have a colony of bees just fly away. They leave the queen, they leave the brood, and you'll have 30, 40, 50,000 bees in a colony, and for the most part they just fly away and disappear. And it's quite unusual because bees typically do not abandon the queen. They don't. And they don't abandon the brood. They try to stay there and keep it. We're husband and wife, owners of Caney Branch Farm, and we've been here for about 6 or 7 years. We found the place and actually got into raising cattle, belted Galloway cattle, and then established an herb garden. Started out with 3 colonies and learned a lot from those first 3, and now we keep anywhere from about 10 to 30 colonies at any one time. It depends on the time of year and whatnot. The largest beekeeper in the United States, he had 40 or 50,000 hives.
50,000 hives, and he lost 40,000 of them.
Yeah, he had an 80% loss.
All the answers are not in, but it's definitely synergy as far as the insecticides that we talked about earlier. It's just like when you go to the drugstore and the doctor says, the pharmacist said, what are the drugs you're taking? They want to know what you're taking because this is harmless and this is harmless. You put them together and they're deadly. That's the same thing that they believe is impacting on the colony collapse.
For 3 now going on 4 years, we haven't had to treat our bees with any chemicals at all.
We can observe our hives, as most beekeepers who've been doing it for any length of time can do. You don't have to open them up. You can just look at them and you can see behavior that tells you there may be a problem. We address that through either combining hives or moving brood or doing whatever we would need to do without artificially inducing patties of pollen or anything into the hive. Don't use any chemicals, pesticides. If you live in the city, then everything that flies around you consider to be a pest. If you live in the country, those are partners. If you want something to take care of aphids, then buy some ladybugs. Buy biologicals that will offset and do the things that nature has intended it to do, and keep the chemicals out of your diet, because it's only going to hurt the bees, but it's also going to wind up in your food chain.
1/3 of our food comes from commercially pollinated crops.
In Florida, it's probably greater because the type food that we grow here is all dependent upon pollinators. If we do not have the honeybee or the bumblebees or other bees and other pollinators available, that means those crops are not going to be produced. So it is going to affect the food supply if it continues on the way that it's going right now.
Yeah, a way to basically put it in perspective is if you go to McDonald's and buy a Big Mac and there were no bees to pollinate, the only thing that you would get when they hand you that box over the counter would be the bun, because everything else within that Big Mac is dependent upon pollination.
Including the meat?
Including the meat, because you feed alfalfa to the cattle. The special sauce is dairy-based, the cheese is dairy-based. You feed the alfalfa, which is pollinated by bees, to the cows. Your lettuce is pollinated, tomatoes are pollinated, onions are pollinated, and the sesame seeds are pollinated. So if you want a diet of just wheat and corn and
rice,
gruel,
rice,
then this is the way to go.
Grits.
But otherwise, if you want variety, then we need to do something about helping the bees and other pollinators. There are others that are suffering too.